Throughout history, various cultures have had a form of sacrifice. What is the meaning of sacrifice? The reasons for sacrifice to God were explained as a gift to gain favor or influence, or to appease or pacify in order to calm divine anger, or even claimed by some as necessary food for strength and survival of the gods, or most significantly, as a substitution to pay for, or cover, human faults and sins. Before the 20th century, most cultures practiced one of these forms of sacrifice, and many of these cultures actually performed animal, and sometimes human, sacrifice by ceremonial slaughter and burning. Sometimes blood sacrifice was replaced with the symbolic burning of incense. Another form of sacrifice can be simply personal denial for another person's sake, but this was not the norm. Now, take the Aztecs of Central America as an example. They had many stone gods and huge pyramid temples. Their temples' altars were found to be coated with blood due to many human sacrifices. They also displayed large wooden racks, which contained thousands of human skulls from sacrifices. They considered it a continual ritual necessary to appease the constant anger of their gods against communal sins. The Rig Veda of ancient India was a very early religious text written from earlier oral traditions. It contains nearly 800 references to sacrifice and persons who performed sacrifice. These texts prescribed that worship was valid only with certain and actual blood sacrifices. Their sacrifices were a necessity claimed to benefit the whole world. Islam has a specific sacrifice. The Qur'an's Momentous Sacrifice commemorates the ransoming, that is, the buying back of Abraham's son's life. This ceremony was called the Eid festival, which is a required Muslim ritual still practiced today. Along with the ceremony, worshippers must seek individual mercy and forgiveness from their God. There is a quote in the Qur'an, chapter 5, Surah 35, which states, "If anyone killed a person, it would be as if he killed the whole people." This refers to the possibility of sacrificial substitution. Within the Chinese Temple of Heaven, only the one invisible god called Shang-Di, meaning Emperor above, was worshipped. The human emperor was considered the Son of Heaven. Only he was authorized to come with humility, prayers, and animal sacrifices before Shang-Di. This was a ceremony performed in China, but was accepted as necessary for the whole world's well-being. This brings us to the concept of Chinese calligraphy. Developed by knowledgeable scribes, this writing goes back thousands of years. Ancient pictures have developed into the stylized form of today. The current simplified characters have lost much of the storytelling quality of the traditional characters. Chinese writing was an independent system of writing, which was not influenced by actual biblical or Western symbolism. Consider the Chinese character Yang, which has the primary meaning, sheep. Sheep are known for their mild and gentle nature. This animal, and character, became a symbol of humility and meekness. Perhaps the character for king or royalty, that is Wang, that is, the three horizontal lines connected by the vertical line. You can be sure the symbolism here is not random. The character for lamb or young goat is Gao. A lamb or young sheep is certainly one of the most harmless of animals. This character contains the sub-characters of sheep over fire, that is, Huo. A healthy lamb is the most desirable for roasting and eating. Which brings us to the character for sacrificial animals, sheep. Starting with bull on the left, and going clockwise, the meaning of the other characters are lamb, spear, and unspoiled, the last of which is actually ripe grain over body. The interpretation is that the animal must be valuable, innocent, compliant, and without defect to be an acceptable sacrifice. To cover, gai, is another function of the lamb. This character is formed from lamb over dish. The dish character is only one stroke different than blood, shai. Therefore, the fleece, or skin of the lamb is a covering for the dish. The lamb's blood is supposedly collected in the dish. To give birth, Yang, is an interesting character. The lamb character is over the between character. The significance is that there's hope for the birth of a mild and gentle child. Also, there's hope in a new spiritual birth, with a nature like that of the lamb. Consider the character for beautiful or admirable, Mei. The sheep character is over the big great, or the mature person character. A person with the lamb's gentleness would be regarded as admirable, and even spiritually beautiful. What about the good, virtuous, or kind character, Shan? Here the lamb character is over the spoken words character. Certainly the meaning is that the nature of the lamb has a virtuous influence on spoken words. Another way of writing the previous character means knowledge of details, Shi Yang. The spoken words character is beside the sheep or lamb character. The interpretation. Carefully consider what makes the sheep-lamb's disposition so desirable. Do you want prosperity or happiness, Shi-Yang? Then place the omen or revelation from heaven character beside the sheep-lamb character. Thus, with the possession of the sheep-lamb, and through its disposition, prosperity and happiness will come. Another significant character is righteousness, justice, or right conduct, Place lamb over I or me. The I or me character is formed by a hand griping a spear, which signifies pride and autonomy. Note the drop of blood at the point of the spear. The wondrous interpretation is, I am pardoned, considered righteous, even though I shed the lamb's blood by my own hand with my spear. The lamb covers my sins. Now we must reason or consider, This consists of the spoken words character beside the justice right conduct characters. Therefore, we should seek to intellectually understand heaven's revelation of a righteous disposition and attitude, and how to obtain it. Finally, we have the pattern or example character, Yang. Tree is written beside lamb, which is over, eternal forever. Interpretation. The lamb on a tree with the promise of eternity is a pattern worth seeking. All of these ideas hint at biblical sacrifices. God performed the first animal sacrifice to provide a covering for Adam and Eve's sin, which was a cause of their shame. Abraham sacrificed a lamb in place of his son, Isaac, whereas God would allow his own son to be sacrificed for the sins of many. To signify the enormity of sin, King Solomon sacrificed thousands of animals on the temple altar, because it took a sacrifice for each sin. Most illustrative is when Moses established the Passover sacrifice. He marked the wooden doorframe with lamb's blood. Every worshipper must eat of the roasted lamb. Though this ceremony, God established this first, old covenant or agreement in 1450 BC. In addition, Moses predicted that the Messiah, which means the divinely chosen and empowered one, would come, and that everyone must submit to him. In the course of time, Yeshua, that is Jesus, came as the Messiah. He was immediately known as the Lamb of God, as in John 1:29. He came to give his life as a ransom for many other people, and thus predicting his own death, as in Mark 10:45. He began communion, that is the new covenant, with the broken bread and fruit juice of the grapevine, as in 1 Corinthians 11:23-25. In about 33 AD, Yeshua subsequently died on a wooden cross, often referred to as a tree according to Acts 10:39. Yeshua brought an end to acceptable and substitutionary blood sacrifices. God had only permitted sacrifices in the Jewish temple according to Deuteronomy 12:5-6. Before his death, Yeshua predicted that the temple would have a climactic end, as in Mark 13:1-2. Finally, the Romans did destroy the temple in 70 AD, and which has never been rebuilt. There have not been any acceptable Jewish sacrifices since. Now, the new covenant replaces that first, or old covenant. The time is coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant agreement. It will not be like the first covenant, because they broke my covenant, according to Jeremiah 31:31-32, which was written around 700 BC, that is before Christ, the Messiah. This new covenant was defined by God through the Bible prophets. The Messiah was sacrificed once to take away the sins of many people, Isaiah 53 and Hebrews 9:28. The Lord will forgive their wickedness and will remember their sins no more, Jeremiah 31:34. Where these sins have been forgiven, there is no longer any sacrifice for sin, Hebrews 10:18. But acceptable sacrifices are still possible now, because Yeshua rose from the dead and ascended into heaven. Offer yourself as a living sacrifice of service to God, Romans 12:1. Offer to God the sacrifice of praise to his name, that is, the name of Yeshua, Hebrews 13:15. Serve others in love as you would serve God, Galatians 5:14 and Ephesians 6:7. Endure any suffering for God, Yeshua, his people, and the Bible, 2 Timothy 2:10 and 1 Peter 4:16. Learn, and so, be blessed.